There is a kind of grocery shopping that most people never do. It does not involve a list of trendy superfoods. It does not require a bulk warehouse membership. It simply requires knowing where to look and understanding why certain foods matter more than others when circumstances change. Most households that think about emergency preparedness tend to gravitate toward the obvious. Rice gets bought in large bags, canned beans line a shelf, water jugs get stacked in a corner. These are reasonable starting points. Nobody is dismissing them here. But there is another layer beneath the obvious, a quieter layer. Foods that sit in grocery stores right now, fully available, reasonably priced, often overlooked, and genuinely valuable in ways that most standard preparedness advice never addresses. Some of them fill nutritional gaps that even thoughtful food storage plans leave open. Some of them address psychological needs that matter more than people expect. Some of them solve problems that only become apparent after weeks of living on a limited pantry. This guide walks through 12 of them, calmly, without urgency, just an honest look at what these foods are, what they do, and why they are worth adding to a thoughtful preparedness plan. 1. Botov canned coconut cream. Walk into the international foods section of most grocery stores. Look past the soy sauce and the rice noodles. You will find cans of coconut cream sitting quietly on a lower shelf. Not coconut milk, coconut cream specifically. They are different products with meaningfully different nutritional profiles. Most shoppers pick up coconut milk occasionally for a recipe and move on. Coconut cream tends to sit there, patient, waiting for someone who understands what is inside. What is inside is dense, stable, calorie-rich fat. One standard can contain somewhere between 400 and 500 calories, drawn almost entirely from medium-chain triglycerides. This particular form of fat is metabolized differently from most dietary fats. The body converts it to usable energy relatively quickly. It does not require the same processing steps as long-chain fats. For someone doing physical work on a limited food supply, that efficiency matters. Fat is one of the most commonly underestimated gaps in food storage planning. Most standard stockpile lists are heavy on carbohydrates, rice, pasta, oats, flour. These are genuinely useful foods, but a diet that is overwhelmingly carbohydrate-based and low in fat creates its own problems over time. Hormonal disruption, difficulty sustaining energy, poor satiety despite eating enough calories. Coconut cream addresses that gap directly. It also transforms meals in a practical, immediate way. A bowl of plain rice becomes genuinely satisfying when coconut cream is stirred in. A pot of oats becomes a high-calorie, sustaining breakfast. Any broth-based soup gains richness and depth. In a situation where people are eating the same limited rotation of foods day after day, that transformation matters more than it might seem. The shelf life for sealed cans runs between 3 and 5 years. The high fat content and low water content leave very little for spoilage to work with. 15 cans cost somewhere between $15 and $25, depending on the brand. That is a modest investment for a significant nutritional addition. Worth noting, coconut cream is sourced primarily from Southeast Asia, moving through maritime shipping corridors that have experienced increasing geopolitical pressure. When those supply chains tighten, availability and pricing are affected before most consumers notice. Stocking at current prices is simply reasonable. 2. Miso paste. Most people have encountered miso soup at a Japanese restaurant. Few have ever bought miso paste at a grocery store. Fewer still have thought about it as a preparedness item. It deserves more attention than it gets. Miso paste sits in the refrigerated section of most grocery stores, usually near tofu or fermented foods, often on a lower shelf in a plastic tub. It is the result of fermenting soybeans with salt and a mold culture called koji, sometimes with added grains like rice or barley. The fermentation process takes months. The result is dense, savory, nutritionally complex, and remarkably stable. The nutritional case for miso is specific. It contains complete protein. It provides B vitamins, including B12, which is notable because B12 is difficult to obtain from plant-based foods. It contains zinc, manganese, and a variety of beneficial bacterial cultures that support digestive health. The flavor case is equally specific. A single teaspoon dissolved in hot water creates an instant broth that is warming, savory, and genuinely comforting. The umami concentration in miso is high enough that it elevates the flavor of almost anything it touches. Rice cooking water with a small amount of miso stirred in produces a fragrant, flavorful result from an otherwise plain ingredient. Beans finished with miso gain depth that transforms them from sustenance into something that feels like an actual meal. Shelf life is where most people are surprised. Refrigerated and sealed, miso paste lasts 1 to 3 years, but miso stored in a consistently cool environment without refrigeration, a cool basement, a root cellar, a shaded pantry in a temperate climate, holds well beyond that. Traditional Japanese households stored miso in clay pots at room temperature for extended periods before refrigeration was widely available. The salt concentration and the acidic environment created by fermentation are natural preservatives. The probiotic content matters specifically in a disruption context. When eating patterns change significantly and suddenly, digestive discomfort is common. Bloating, irregularity, and general gastrointestinal distress develop quickly. The beneficial bacteria in fermented foods like miso help the digestive system adapt to new inputs. 3 to 5 tubs at $15 to $25 represents a meaningful addition to any food storage plan. 3. Powdered peanut butter. Regular peanut butter is on most preparedness lists. Powdered peanut butter is on almost none of them. That gap is worth addressing directly. The distinction comes down to shelf life and storage efficiency. Standard commercial peanut butter, even the stabilized varieties, lasts 1 to 2 years sealed. The oils that keep it smooth eventually oxidize, and oxidized fat produces off flavors and reduces nutritional quality. Powdered peanut butter eliminates this problem at the source. The oil is pressed out before the peanuts are dried and ground into powder. What remains is peanut protein, fiber, and a small amount of residual fat in a stable, sealed powder. Sealed with oxygen absorbers in a Mylar bag, powdered peanut butter lasts 4 to 5 years without quality degradation. That is more than double the shelf life of its jarred equivalent. When you want peanut butter, you add water. The ratio determines the consistency. More water produces a thinner sauce that works well mixed into oats or stirred into soups for protein and calorie density. Less water produces a spreadable paste. The flavor is similar to conventional peanut butter, somewhat less rich due to the reduced fat content, but entirely recognizable. The storage efficiency advantage is significant. 1 pound of powdered peanut butter occupies a fraction of the shelf space required for an equivalent caloric amount of jarred peanut butter. In any preparedness context where space is a limiting factor, that compression matters. For anyone building a portable emergency kit or maintaining a bug-out supply, the calorie-to-weight ratio of powdered peanut butter is difficult to match. Complete protein, sustained energy, compact storage, extended shelf life, 3 to 5 pounds at $15 to $25. If you have found this guide useful so far, please consider liking this video, leaving a comment below about which of these items surprised you most, and subscribing for more calm, practical preparedness content. It genuinely helps more people find this information. 4. Notched canned jackfruit in brine. This one tends to surprise people, including experienced preppers encountering it for the first time. Jackfruit in brine, specifically young green jackfruit, not the sweet ripe variety, sits in the international foods aisle and is purchased almost exclusively by people who already know what it is. Here is what makes it worth understanding. When young jackfruit is cooked and pulled apart, the texture it produces closely resembles shredded or pulled meat. It is fibrous, substantial, and satisfying in a way that beans and lentils, despite their genuine nutritional value, simply cannot replicate for people accustomed to meat-based meals. This is partly about texture and partly about psychology. In a prolonged disruption where fresh meat has not been available for weeks, a meal that looks and feels structurally similar to pulled chicken or pulled pork has a different effect on morale than another bowl of beans. It signals variety. It suggests a level of normalcy. Food fatigue is a real phenomenon that affects willingness to eat, caloric intake, and general well-being. Ingredients that break the monotony have genuine practical value. Jackfruit pairs well with rice and soy sauce. It works in pasta with canned tomatoes. It adds body and texture to soups and stews that would otherwise be thin. The nutritional profile includes fiber, vitamin C, potassium, and several B vitamins. These nutrients are generally absent from canned meat products, which makes jackfruit a complementary addition rather than simply a substitute. Sealed cans last 2 to 3 years, 10 to 15 cans at $15 to $20. A textural and psychological gap filler that most plant-based food storage plans overlook entirely. 5. Cream of tartar. $3. A small jar in the baking aisle. Most households buy one and use it for a single recipe once a year. Serious preppers buy 5 or 6, and here is exactly why. Cream of tartar is potassium bitartrate, a natural acid salt that forms as a byproduct of wine fermentation. It is one of the most shelf-stable baking ingredients in existence. Stored in a sealed container away from moisture, it does not degrade. There is no meaningful expiration. Its primary value in a preparedness context is baking powder. Baking powder, which is itself just a combination of an acid and a base, is one of the first specialty baking items to disappear from grocery shelves during any shortage. It is not something people stockpile in large quantities because they rarely think about it until it is gone. When it is gone, risen bread disappears, biscuits become dense, pancakes lose their lift, quick breads become flat and difficult. Cream of tartar combined with baking soda makes fresh baking powder on demand. 2 teaspoons of cream of tartar mixed with 1 teaspoon of baking soda equals 1 tablespoon of baking powder. Because both components are independently stable for very long periods, this combination represents an indefinite supply of a critical baking ingredient. The second function is structural. In baking, particularly when using reconstituted powdered eggs, cream of tartar stabilizes egg whites, and it helps them hold their structure through mixing and heat. This matters when making cakes, biscuits, or any baked good where proper rise and texture depend on egg white behavior. The third function is cleaning. Cream of tartar mixed with water or a small amount of vinegar removes rust, mineral deposits, and stubborn residue from cookware and metal surfaces. In a situation where commercial cleaning products are unavailable or limited, having a non-toxic, effective cleaning agent on hand is quietly valuable. 5 to 6 jars at $15 to $18, indefinite shelf life, multiple practical functions. The $3 item that most preparedness plans never mention? Lazen, Fisen, Kandash, coconut water. Not the refrigerated cartons with 10-day shelf life, the shelf-stable canned version, sitting in the international foods section near the coconut cream. Most shoppers walk past it without a second look. Most preppers do the same. The function it serves in a preparedness context is specific. Coconut water is one of the most complete natural electrolyte solutions available without pharmaceutical preparation. It contains potassium, sodium, magnesium, and calcium in proportions that closely resemble the electrolyte composition of human blood plasma. This similarity is not coincidental, and it is what makes coconut water genuinely effective for hydration at a physiological level. During World War II, in remote Pacific Theater field hospitals, where sterile intravenous saline was unavailable, military medics used coconut water as an emergency hydration fluid. This was documented in the British medical journal The Lancet. The practice existed because coconut water's electrolyte profile made it a functional substitute in emergency circumstances. In a civilian disruption, the concern is less dramatic, but equally real. Physical labor increases, heat exposure may rise, water quality may become uncertain. In these conditions, electrolyte depletion develops faster than most people expect. The symptoms, muscle cramping, cognitive dulling, disproportionate fatigue, can arrive before thirst becomes pronounced. Plain water rehydrates, but does not replace electrolytes. Coconut water addresses both simultaneously. There is also a psychological dimension worth acknowledging. Drinking something that tastes clean, slightly sweet, and genuinely pleasant has a different effect on morale than consuming emergency rations or plain treated water. Small signals of normalcy accumulate and matter. 15 to 20 cans at $20 to $30, sealed shelf life of 1 to 2 years. If you are still with us at this point, it genuinely means a lot. Please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who values practical preparedness, leave a comment telling us which item you plan to pick up first, and subscribe if you have not already. These small actions help this information reach more people. 7 Bilaskipi Madam Priyadzant by Blackstrap Molasses. The darkest bottle in the baking aisle, usually $4 to $6. It tends to sit undisturbed between lighter syrups and refined sweeteners that shoppers actually reach for. Most people who buy it do so for a single recipe and rarely return to it. Blackstrap molasses is what remains after sugarcane juice has been processed through multiple extraction stages to remove refined sugar. Each stage pulls out more sucrose. What is left after the final stage is blackstrap, the concentrated residue containing nearly every mineral and micronutrient that was present in the original cane plant. The nutritional density is striking. A single tablespoon of blackstrap molasses contains more iron than most cuts of beef by weight. In a disruption where fresh meat disappears and iron stores begin to deplete, fatigue, weakened immunity, and reduced physical capacity follow. Blackstrap is one of the very few shelf-stable iron sources available at a grocery store without pharmaceutical intervention. The calcium content is equally notable, more per tablespoon than a comparable serving of dairy milk. In an extended disruption where dairy is unavailable, calcium deficiency begins affecting bone density and muscle function. Blackstrap provides what almost no other shelf-stable food can match for calcium concentration. It also contains magnesium, potassium, vitamin B6, and manganese in meaningful quantities. No other sweetener comes close to this micronutrient profile. The practical applications are flexible. A tablespoon stirred into oatmeal adds both nutrition and a deep, slightly bitter sweetness. It enhances baked goods made from stored flour. It works well in bean dishes, where it adds complexity and balances savory notes. Dissolved into warm water, it creates a simple mineral-rich drink. A sealed bottle stored in a cool, dark location lasts 4 to 5 years conservatively. Some sources report quality remaining intact significantly beyond that. 4 to 6 bottles at $16 to $30, the iron and calcium source that most food storage plans forget entirely. 8. Dried lentils, but specifically red lentils. Most preparedness lists include lentils generally. Very few specify red lentils in particular, and the distinction is meaningful enough to warrant its own entry. Red lentils do not require soaking before cooking. They cook in 15 to 20 minutes, significantly faster than brown or green lentils. In a situation where fuel is limited, whether that is propane, firewood, or any other heat source, cooking time is a direct resource cost. Foods that cook quickly conserve fuel. Over weeks and months of regular cooking, that difference accumulates into a genuine practical advantage. Red lentils also break down as they cook, producing a naturally thick, creamy texture without any additional ingredients. A pot of red lentils with salt, cumin, and a small amount of oil becomes a satisfying protein-rich meal with minimal preparation. They absorb flavors readily, which makes them compatible with nearly any spice combination you have available. The nutritional profile is dense, high protein, high fiber, iron, folate, and a range of B vitamins. A complete source of plant-based nutrition that keeps well in sealed containers for 3 to 5 years. A bag of red lentils at most grocery stores costs between $2 and $4. They are not a hidden item in the same way as some entries on this list, but the specific selection of red over other varieties is a refinement that most preparedness lists omit. 5 to 10 pounds at $10 to $20 is a meaningful addition that addresses calorie needs, protein needs, and fuel efficiency simultaneously. 9. Canned sardines and olive oil. Sardines are on some preparedness lists, but they are frequently overlooked in favor of canned tuna. The comparison is worth making directly. Sardines contain higher concentrations of omega-3 fatty acids than most other canned fish. They provide complete protein, calcium from the softened edible bones, vitamin D, vitamin B12, and selenium. Tuna provides protein, but lacks several of these additional nutrients. In terms of nutritional density per dollar, sardines are difficult to beat. The olive oil packing matters. Oil-packed sardines provide additional calories from fat and are generally more palatable than water-packed varieties. The olive oil itself can be used separately, drizzled over rice, or used for sautéing, which means nothing in the can is wasted. Shelf life for properly sealed sardine cans runs 3 to 5 years. Some research suggests that omega-3 content actually improves slightly over time in oil-packed sardines as the oils continue to integrate. The cans are small, stackable, and calorie-dense relative to their storage footprint. 12 to 15 cans at $18 to $25. A protein and nutrient source that surpasses tuna in several meaningful nutritional categories and stores just as easily. 10. Nutritional yeast. This one tends to draw a blank stare from most shoppers. It sits in a canister or bag in the health food or natural foods section of most grocery stores. It looks like yellow flakes. It smells faintly nutty and cheesy. What it provides is significant. Nutritional yeast is deactivated yeast, meaning it offers none of the leavening function of active yeast. What it does offer is a complete protein containing all 9 essential amino acids. It is one of the richest plant-based sources of B vitamins, including B12 in fortified varieties. It contains zinc, magnesium, copper, and manganese. The flavor is the feature that makes it practically useful in a food storage context. When sprinkled over food, nutritional yeast produces a savory, slightly cheesy taste that adds genuine depth to otherwise plain meals. A bowl of rice with a spoonful of nutritional yeast and a little salt tastes substantially more interesting than plain rice. Oats, soups, beans, all of them benefit from a small addition. In an extended disruption where diet variety is limited, having an ingredient that changes the flavor profile of base foods has real morale and appetite value. Stored in a sealed, airtight container, nutritional yeast lasts 2 or more years without quality loss. 1 to 2 canisters at $10 to $15. A protein-complete, B12-rich, flavor-enhancing ingredient that most preparedness plans have never considered. Thank you for staying with this guide. If this content is useful to you, please leave a like, drop a comment, telling us which of these items you already stock and which ones are new to you, and subscribe for future guides on practical preparedness. Sharing this with one person who might benefit from it makes a genuine difference. 11. Butter stored in the refrigerator lasts weeks. Butter stored on the counter becomes risky within days in warm weather. Ghee, clarified butter from which the milk solids and water have been removed, is a different product with dramatically different storage properties. A sealed jar of commercially produced ghee stores at room temperature for 12 to 24 months without refrigeration. Once opened, it remains stable on a cool countertop for 1 to 3 months. The removal of water and milk proteins eliminates the primary pathways through which butter spoils. What remains is pure butter fat, stable, rich, and calorie-dense. Ghee is shelf-stable cooking fat. This category of ingredient is surprisingly underrepresented in most food storage plans. Coconut oil is another option in this category, but ghee provides a different flavor profile, buttery, slightly nutty, familiar, that coconut oil cannot replicate. The caloric contribution of cooking fat is meaningful. Fat provides 9 calories per gram, compared to 4 calories per gram from carbohydrates or protein. In a food storage context where caloric density and storage efficiency both matter, ghee packs substantial energy into a small footprint. It handles high heat cooking well. Sautéing, frying, roasting, and pan cooking all work reliably with ghee. For households with members who have dairy sensitivities, ghee is often tolerated better than butter because the milk proteins responsible for most dairy reactions have been removed. 1 to 2 jars at $12 to $20, a stable cooking fat that fills a gap most food storage plans overlook. 12. Whole grain rolled oats in sealed mylar. Oats appear on most preparedness lists. Whole grain rolled oats stored in sealed mylar bags with oxygen absorbers appear on almost none of them, and the difference matters. Standard cardboard oat containers last 6 to 12 months before flavor quality begins to decline. The natural oils in oats eventually oxidize when exposed to oxygen over time. Whole grain rolled oats sealed in mylar bags with oxygen absorbers extend that shelf life to 25 to 30 years without meaningful quality loss. The same oats. Dramatically different outcomes based solely on packaging. The mylar bags are inexpensive and available at preparedness retailers and online. The process of repackaging oats takes minutes. The result is one of the most calorie-dense, nutritionally complete, fuel-efficient base foods available for long-term storage. Oats cook in 5 to 10 minutes with hot water. They require no complex preparation. They accept additions readily: powdered peanut butter, blackstrap molasses, nutritional yeast, coconut cream, all of which have been covered in this guide. They work as a base for simple baked goods when combined with cream of tartar and baking soda. They are naturally gluten-containing, but certified gluten-free varieties are widely available for households that need them. 25 pounds of rolled oats at $20 to $30, repackaged into mylar with oxygen absorbers, represents one of the highest value long-term food storage investments available at a grocery store and basic supply retailer. Putting it together, 12 foods, all of them available at grocery stores that most readers visit regularly, all of them overlooked by most shoppers and even by most people who think carefully about preparedness, all of them addressing specific identifiable gaps that standard preparedness advice leaves open. The fat gap, coconut cream, ghee, sardines, and olive oil. The electrolyte gap, canned coconut water. The iron and calcium gap, blackstrap molasses, sardines. The protein gap, powdered peanut butter, red lentils, nutritional yeast, miso paste. The baking ingredient gap, cream of tartar. The texture and morale gap, canned jackfruit. The base food longevity gap, mylar sealed oats. The flavor and B vitamin gap, nutritional yeast, miso paste, blackstrap molasses. These categories overlap. Several items address multiple gaps simultaneously. That is part of what makes them valuable. They are not single-function ingredients. They contribute to a food storage plan in more than one way at the same time. The total cost for meaningful quantities of all 12 items sits comfortably under $200. For many of them, the per-item investment is under $20. The value delivered per dollar spent, measured in shelf life, nutritional contribution, and gap coverage, is difficult to match through any other category of preparedness spending. The standard stockpile list, rice, beans, water, basic canned goods, is the right starting point. Every household should have those basics well covered before moving on. This list represents the next layer. The refinement that turns a basic food storage plan into something genuinely comprehensive. These items are all sitting on shelves right now, available at the same stores most readers visit this week. Priced at the same levels they are today, which will not necessarily be the case in 6 months or a year. Quiet, unhurried, and worth picking up, while the opportunity is simply a matter of knowing what